statistical thing, but I can definitely research it. These road losses, they seem to be like they were against Atlanta, where they're losing to these bad teams on the road because they're not checked in to play. But they beat Boston in Boston. They went into Miami, and they had one of those Sixers ways to lose where it came down to the last minute and a half, and they found a way to lose the game. But it wasn't as if they were not involved in the game. They came down to the last minute of the game, and they did a Sixers-type loss. I'm not saying that's right, but the point is they were in the game. These road losses, the record looks so bad because it seems like a lot of them are against these bad teams where they just don't care to play.
Yeah, but is that okay?
No, but it just dates back to when it's May, when it's the playoffs, and every game matters. You're not going to get that type of effort that they gave against the Atlanta Hawks in January.
I mean, that's fair. Of course, they're going to bring.
Like the Lakers just came into Philadelphia and got blown out by a team without two starters.
Right.
It's the NBA.
But that team's 20-5 on the road.
Sure.
That team is the best record in the NBA. I mean, that team has LeBron James. That's a different scenario. Listen, I completely understand what you're saying. Right. I get it. I mean, I completely get it. But I don't think it's fair to assume. It's just getting them off the hook. Once again, it goes back to the Eagles conversation. And we talked to Malcolm Jenkins this week, and I was the guy after Miami, and I'll tie this back in, so just give me a second. I was the guy after Miami, 5-7, where I thought that the team was a bad football team. I did not have faith in the Eagles making the playoffs. At that point, they had a 16% chance to make the playoffs. I was in the rational side of thinking where this team is not going to make the playoffs. I talked to Malcolm Jenkins this week. You know what he said? We weren't a good football team. So everything that I was saying at that point, Malcolm Jenkins felt the same way, all right, in a sense that he knew the team wasn't good, but they just have a different mindset. They're playing. They don't listen to all the noise. We're the noise. They need to rectify the ship, all right? So this translates because you have a massive body of work right now in the 76ers. They're 9-15. That's 24 games. All right. That is more than half of your road games. All right. The jury's essentially out on this team for playing away from the Wells Fargo Center. They're not a good team on the road. All right. If you want to be optimistic, you can. But I don't think it's fair, to say, well, they beat Boston. And that's very important. That's huge, especially with a team that stinks on the road, because you can at least go to that and have a glimmer of hope where you say, okay, they do turn it on against good teams. And that's important. Of course, they're going to bring more effort in the postseason than they do on a Tuesday night in January in Atlanta. That's obvious. But as I said earlier, this is a tight race. Games matter now. It's not, well, they matter in April. No, games matter now.
Yeah,
you keep losing. You keep losing.
Disagree.
Oh, well, then here we go.
Yeah.
If we keep losing on Tuesday night in January, this team's going to be a 6 seed. If we keep losing on Tuesday night in January, Brett Brown's fired, Elton Brand's fired, and we're talking about a one-and-done exit.
Right now.
So eventually, this team's going to have to start winning on these Tuesday nights. That's just the reality of the situation, or else they're going to be a lower seed. They're not going to have home floor, and how dominant they are in the Wells Fargo Center isn't going to mean anything. And they did beat Toronto last year 3 times on the road in the playoffs. That's awesome. I don't know what their road record was last year during the regular season. We'd have to pull it up. But still, man, I know that the effort's going to be there, and I'm optimistic that they can turn it on. But if you want to hear the facts, this team is going to be on the road in the first round, and that's going to be big trouble for them.
They were 22-19 last year away.
There you go. So that's a much better team on the road. I'd feel much better about this team. If they end up finishing 22-19, this conversation's mute.
That would be 3 more road losses.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. Right now, if they do if it finishes today, they're playing Boston in a 7-game series without home court advantage. Are you afraid of that?
No, I'm not afraid of Boston.
I'm not afraid of that at all.
No,
I'm
but
not afraid of that at all.
I am a little bit that they don't have home floor.
See, I'm not. I'm not in that respect.
They're a better team. They would get it done.
Being 5-7 in the NFL and regular season basketball, whether people
100%.
like to admit it or not, regular season basketball to a team that knows they are going to make the playoffs, it doesn't matter to them. It just doesn't matter. And the playoff basketball is a different type of. It's a totally different game. It's not even the same sport. It really isn't. It's
much different.
Completely different basketball game.
Yeah.
So you can't break down an 82 game schedule of regular season basketball and compare what they did against the Atlanta Hawks to what they're going to do on the road in a playoff game. It's just not even the same conversation.
No, I mean, I think you're twisting my words. My point was I'm looking at the body of work as an away record, and that's the majority of the games. I think of course it's not identically comparable, but I think the point of it is you're clinging on to, and I'm paraphrasing it, it's not exactly how you feel, but you're clinging on to basketball is different in the postseason. 100% true. This team is built for the postseason. I'm not going to say 100% true, but it's true. They're built for the postseason. The game's different in the postseason. So it favors their style more than it does now. But I think my point is this team needs to have a top 3 seed if they want to get to where we want them to get, and that's out of the East. If you want this team out of the East, they better be 1 or 2. They're not going to be 1, but they better be 2 or 3. If they're not the 3rd seed, this team is not coming out of the East, Broads.
I don't know if I necessarily agree, but here's my point.
That's fine, but I mean, I would put anything on that, and I would hope to be wrong, but if they're not 2 or 3, they're not coming out the East, and this is too tight of a race. And Embiid just came out and said it. He said, I got to get back because we need to finish in a top seed. And I quote, Joel Embiid, this is a tight race. He didn't have to say any of that.
Well, come on.
He didn't have to say any of it. All he could have said was, we're working back. It's a process. He could have said whatever he wanted. He acknowledged the tight race in the East and the importance of home court advantage.
I'm not saying that the Sixers are by far better than the Bucks, Raptors, Celtics, Heat, and Pacers. And once the playoff comes around, they're just going to dominate every team. My point is, they are just as good as those teams. They're not superior to those teams. They're just as good as those teams. And all you can ask for is your team to be involved with the best teams in the Eastern Conference every single year. Mm-hmm. We have that. So whether that relates to winning the East or getting to the finals or not, they're in the mix with all the other teams. They're just as good as all the other teams. So anything can happen, whether they're a 3rd seed or a 6th seed. Obviously, the 3rd seed will give you a better opportunity, but I'm not afraid of going into Boston and not having home court advantage against the Boston Celtics.
I'm not afraid of the Boston Celtics either. But
that's who they would play in the 6th seed right now. That's my point. Where
that's fine.
Basketball. It's about matchups in the playoffs. So you can be in the 3rd seed and escape playing someone that you like. It might work out where you might want to be in the 6th seed over the 5th seed because instead of that's not true. What if you end
up? Just look up.
If you're in the 5th seed and you have to play
Look
Toronto,
up basketball stats for seeds.
If you are the 5th seed and you got to play Toronto on the road, the first playoff round, or you could be the 6th seed and play the Boston Celtics.
Yeah,
I want to be in the 6th seed then.
Right, you want to play the Boston Celtics, but if you're picking, that's my overall point, bro. If you're like trying to debate and decipher between the 5th seed and the 6th seed, this team ain't getting to where you want it to go.
But I disagree,
and that's fine. But I'm going on stats. If you look up NBA history, you look up seeds that got to the NBA Finals. Look it up. Number 1 for 100 years. The number 1 seed has the best chance. The number 2 seed has the second best chance. And the number 3 seed has a small chance. All right? Unless you have LeBron on your team, Kobe, or MJ, that's how it goes.
Well, I don't think this team's winning the NBA Finals anyway. So I think
that neither do I. Neither do I.
But my point is,
so then why do we care?
Well, because
that's
not going to watch. No, we're going to watch.
That's my point. That's the Mike Gill argument is like nothing matters, optimism, and then they eventually lose. Like I'm going to break down what I see in front of me, and I have a 24-game body of work that's garbage. Now, does it mean that that's going to translate 100% guaranteed to the postseason? No, absolutely not. All right, but it is going to play a massive role in this team and where they go. I promise you that. If this team has a 3rd seed, I feel confident they could win a couple playoff series. If this team's a 6th seed,
it's 1 game difference in a playoff series, right? And that 1 game's big if it gets to 7.
But it's about matchups, like you said.
You're right, it is. That's why it changes everything. It is about the matchups.
Right.
So that's defending my point. It's
but you have in like the first round or two. Your point was, well, if you're the 6th seed and you play Boston as the 3, or if you're the 5 seed and you play Toronto as the 4, yeah, I want Boston. But when you look down the road for multiple series, if you're the 6th seed or if you're even the 5 seed, it's going to be much more of an uphill battle to win 2 playoff series than it is if you're winning these games against Atlanta and you're 15-9 right now instead of 9-15. We're thinking about this team in a different lens. We're looking at this team in a different lens right now, because now this team is possibly the 2 seed or the 3 seed, and now we're saying, come to Philly, and we have the Bucks when we want them in the Eastern Conference Finals. We're going to have the right matchups in the first round, in the second round, and now we're looking good. If this team goes in, even against Boston in the first round as the 5 seed or the 6 seed, whatever it is, it's going to be very challenging.
It's going to be challenging even if they have them at home, though, because it's only if it gets to Game 7 where it's the problem, right? Well, so if they win in 6, it's only that 7th game where it really comes into play as that much of a difference maker. If the series doesn't go to 7, it's different.
Well, I mean, for that individual series, yeah, sure, but to start a series at home for the first 2 games is huge.
Yes,
and yes, you can drop a game, but
to me, and if this team's going anywhere.
And like you said, it's more about the matchups. It's more about multiple series. It's more about the uphill battle of a 6 seed having to win multiple series where you're starting multiple series on the road. It's just history tells you in the NBA, the top teams advance. That's the reality of it. This is not the NHL. This is not the NFL. The top seeds advance. And if you continue to lose to bad teams throughout the regular season, it's not going to bode well for you.
But
it's
all
not.
These teams lose to bad teams in the
sure, but not all these good teams are 9-15 on the road. The Lakers are getting the job done. LeBron's coming to play on Tuesday night in January. AD's coming to play on Tuesday night in January. In the NBA, you're going to lose to bad teams. The Lakers are 20-5 on the road. The Sixers are 9-15.
I just don't put much stock in regular season basketball. That's all. And you're right. When you are in first seed, 41-7 is a lot different than the 76ers. But then what that tells you is the Sixers aren't that good. If they're then they're not that good, and that's what we've been saying. They're not going to make the NBA Finals this year. That's fine, but it doesn't mean I don't put too much stock in regular season basketball, because these 9-16, the away record that we're talking about, if 7 of them are against the Atlanta Hawks, the Orlando Magics, and they don't feel like playing because it's not a playoff game, that doesn't relate to a playoff game on the road. It doesn't relate, so I can't use.
So how do you assess the Sixers?
I think that they're
just
in the
through
mix
Boston.
Yes, against the playoff team. Yes.
Okay.
Because who cares what they do against the Knicks in February when no one cares?
I don't, but I care about the body of work for sure.
Sure, and I care about the body of work against the teams that play in the playoffs and that matter. That's how I assess them. I assess them against the Milwaukee Bucks on Christmas. I assess them against the Toronto Raptors on the road where they fall. I assess them against the Miami Heat where they fell apart under a minute left. And that definitely is something that I will use when it comes down to playoff stuff. Those are the games that matter to me. I don't give a damn if they lose to the Bulls in Chicago in October.
Neither do I, but here's the thing.
That's how I assess. So this 9-16 thing, it's annoying, and I get why there's value in it, but I will need to look at the schedule, dissect which losses were the blowouts against the Orlando Magic or the blowout loss against whatever team on the road where who cares? Because they just didn't show up because the game didn't matter to them. That's not how professional sports should be. But that's the NBA. That's regular season basketball. That's on the league more so than it is the specific players.
I mean, yes and no. It is the style of the league that doesn't make it okay. I think good teams, great teams that are on a mission and need to, especially young teams, they need to work on their discipline, their fundamentals, and their cohesion and chemistry as a team. And that's something the Sixers, I think, need as much as anyone right now. Yes, you're right. A game in New York in January, in February, does not matter. Does not matter. But what this team does as far as their road to the playoffs, they need to be clicking at the right time, and maybe they will be, come playoff time as they head into the playoffs. If they're clicking at the right time and they're winning consistently and they have a 600 or better record heading into the playoffs, you're going to feel good about this team. But this is too tight of a race this year to just not assess a 25-game sample on the road. It just, I have to look at that. I have to. I mean, it's just too many games for me to say, well, they're 6-2 against the other teams. I mean, that is a huge sign. I think that is very important. And I think that's very important because of their inconsistencies otherwise. So that at least I can get what you're saying when you're saying, well, at least they're winning against the good teams. You're right. And that is 100% valid. But if you continue to be up, down, and more downs than ups, you're going to face a very uphill battle, and it's going to come back and bite them in the you-know-what.
Listen, I understand where you're coming from. This team has flaws. They're not the greatest team in the world. I understand that. But I think people are getting so overworked with regular season basketball, and it's like game-by-game stuff where one game they beat the Boston Celtics or they beat the Lakers. Wow, this team is great. That's awesome. They look so good. They can beat the Lakers. They're going to win the title. Then they lose to the Hawks the next night. This team stinks. Mm-hmm. I can't believe it. Fire Brett Brown. Then say they beat the Celtics tonight. Oh, this is amazing. They did it without Al Horford.
That's sports, though.
But it's not.
It is.
No.
They're being fans. Who the heck are we?
It's 82 game season, though. Like, that's why it's... And the playoffs are just a different game. It blows my mind, and that's where it's frustrating for me. You can't be that one extreme to the next.
Yeah, they can.
Why?
Why not?
Because that's dumb.
They're fans.
Yeah, but you can be a logical fan.
Who cares? They care about their team. That was the whole point of the process. Is they want fans to be invested through 82 games. The Sixers are one of the best attendance teams in the
NBA. No one cares about an 82 game regular season. That's the point I'm trying.
The Sixers fans do.
Well, they don't. Do they though?
What do you mean? You're losing sleep over their comments on your YouTube and Twitter pages.
No,
the Sixers are top in merchandise. They're top in attendance. They have one of the best. 100%. Everything. That's part of the process. They have to make their team relevant again.
Sure, that's fine, but that's not what this is about. Like, you're spinning it in a different direction. You're talking more about the organization. And
No. Let me back up. I'll explain it perfectly. So you're saying you're getting frustrated, paraphrasing, about fans are illogical. They're cheering that they're a championship team after they beat the Lakers, and they're losing their mind after they lose to a bad team. Of course. Like, that's sports. That's being a fan. I'm never, ever in my life going to be the guy that looks down on fans for being too upset after a loss and being too happy after a win.
I will.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That is sports, bro. This ain't science. This ain't brain surgery.
Yeah, but there's also something called logic.
What? It's not logic to them. They have passion. They have fun.
You can have passion and have logic.
Dude, who are we to tell fans how to act? Listen. I'm just saying.
You can look at it that way.
I understand.
You can have logic and passion in the same thing.
I mean, I don't look at it as logic and illogical. I mean, fine. They can be illogical in their takes. I don't care about their takes. If they want to cheer this team and sell out the Wells Fargo Center for years and years and be passionate, and Sixers basketball is relevant again in this city, I'm happy. It's a positive. I'd rather
how that relates to
because they're invested. Go look at the Twitter feeds when they had 10-win seasons and 28-win seasons. No one gave a bleep about the losses in Atlanta. That's my point, Broads. People care about this team on a night-to-night basis, and that causes overreaction, and that is a positive for the organization and the city, because people care so much.
I understand what this relates to the original conversation about them.
You're talking because you were just talking about being illogical and fans being irrational and not.
Are you asking me would I rather them be this way or win 10 games?
No, I'm just saying it's a good thing that fans are invested in their team.
Yes, but you can
and I don't care about their take.
You can be invested in logical.
What's logical? So they can't react to games?
You can react to. You can absolutely react.
So they
to
have
games.
to they don't do what we do. They're allowed to care and say, "Oh, this team stinks." They're a fan from a distance. They don't look at the ins and outs. They don't look at and process things rationally how you do, and that's okay. That's okay.
That's fine. Okay, you're right.
Like who are we?
You're
like
right.
you look at like. John McMullen, I love him more than anything, and he's as knowledgeable as can be, but he tweets out all the time, the hypocrisy of if Jadeveon Clowney came to the Eagles. Dude, they're fans. Yeah, of course they're gonna. Of course, that's fine. Yeah. Of course they're gonna scream and yell at the villain on the other team. And if he comes to your team, they're going to cheer for him. Like, that is like sports on a fundamental 101 level. And if we can't let the fans be fans, then we don't have a job.
Yeah, but you can be a fan and not be irrational.
Right. And listen, we're going in circles. It's all good. We all have two sides. It's very interesting. 609-403-0973 is the text board. 609-403-0973. Really great conversation. Chime in. What are your thoughts on the Sixers right now? We're an hour and a half in, and we haven't even talked about this Super Bowl game.
That's it.
Are you kidding me?
I guess that kind of goes
there we go.
What we started with.
That is everything right there. So we're going to take a quick break here, live in the Matt Black Kia studios. Ryan Rothstein, Hunter Brody hanging out with you until 10 a.m. Chiefs, 49ers, baby. Who do you got? Some prop bets and more, taking you to 10 a.m., followed by Billy Schweim, the Schweimer, and the locker room. We'll be right back.
Tomorrow, the San Francisco 49ers, Kansas City.
Good stuff.
Super Bowl 54. Hi, this is Scott Graham. Join me in the rest of our West